whatever, and say finance and education in such a way that they practically always get paid off. That, okay, so some people never pay them off. We might say, okay, well, then the additional cost of a college education is insurance of payment, which the rest of you who finance it in this way share the cost that society would be burdened with of paying off the unpaid educations. You see, it falls on the rest of you then. We could do something like that. But the point is just to adhere to these principles, which maintain a circulation which is always equal to the remaining value of the represented property by virtue of a schedule of payment which pays it out of circulation at the rate of consumption or depreciation. Simple as that.
Okay. Well, hearing you answer that, I think you may have answered my second question. Because now you got my wheels turning in that direction. Because my second question was, if the value of something suddenly changed, and what I had in my mind was the example, I buy some property in Idaho and everything's hunky-dory, and then somebody says, hey, there's $1 billion worth of oil underneath that property. Well, of course, now there's a change, but based on what you had said, we could separate out and say, well, the property hasn't changed. It's the value of the oil that's now.
Absolutely right. You're thinking, you're doing this perfectly. So, and in fact, that's the case. And another thing about the property of the oil is this. Does it belong to an oil company? Just because we've done this mineral rights thing the way that we have for so long. And property, land, real property, is another issue, which, my ideas about it are not ideas that I would expect a country in the state that we're in to recognize that, he's right. We can't consider property what we have considered it. And I've thought about this intensely throughout my entire life, because when I was very young, at the age of 10, actually, I started painting and making a lot of money selling my oil paintings. I had paintings in 5 major galleries of the Bay Area when I was 11 years old. My father left. My father was a commercial real estate salesman. Father left the family. I supported the family in a brand new house. I kept food on the table. Basically, my paintings sold as fast as I could paint. If I did 3 paintings a week, and they'd sell for $150 a piece. And by the time I'm about 13 years old, beyond supporting the family like that, I have $10,000 saved up. And I was into hunting since I was a young boy, at 20 miles of hills out the back door, and I was interested in owning remote property in Colorado, Wyoming, or Montana, and there used to be advertisements when I was a boy that, of prime government land like that for 50 cents and $1 an acre, So these were advertisements in Sports Afield, Outdoor Life, different magazines like that. And I would study all this. And when I was 13, I wanted to, believe it or not, that $2,500 would have paid for like a 4-year college education. So I had $10,000 saved up when I'm 13. I want to save $2,500 for my college education. I wanted to spend $7,500 on land, contiguous, huge property, 50 cents or $1 an acre. So I would own anywhere from 7,500 to 15,000 acres in Colorado, Wyoming, or Montana is where I was looking at land. And when this went to my father, even though he's a commercial real estate salesman, he absolutely forbid it. For years I argued to buy land, and I was denied this opportunity by my own father, which is a very difficult thing for me to this very day to deal with. But when I really truly think about it, I don't think anyone has a right to own all that land. This guy who was part of Enron, for instance, knew the whole thing was coming down. He was one of the top guys, and he bailed out before the whole Enron thing imploded, and he's the largest landowner in Colorado right now. Is that right? I say absolutely not. That most of these lands should be owned jointly and used and enjoyed jointly and managed much better than they are today. That to raise cattle on them is a privilege. It's not something that people should, actually truly own themselves, that they should be responsible for if they're using it for those purposes. But in truth, my own natural attitude toward all those things when I was a kid was, I didn't care if it was private property. I hunted on it. I hunted on huge tracts of land, and I was the only person up there, and it was paradise, But I didn't respect private property rights, other than that I never left a track on their land. I didn't walk on a deer trail. I walked off to the side of the deer trail. I wouldn't shoot a shot except in very remote areas where no one would even know where the shot came from, and I'd hustle my butt between places, But in truth, I don't believe a person owns. I side with the American Indians, the Native Americans on this. I believe that instead we do have a right to a small tract of land to live on, big enough to grow our own food on, and that could be just an acre or two even. And if we build a dwelling on it, that it's our responsibility to provide for the destruction of that dwelling so that that land can be returned to its natural state. That we should be careful about where we live, and we should live strategically so that society can be, can meet its objects in the most economic ways. But so, my ideas are different. People who own land are going to say, well, I don't want to go through that. No way are you taking all my land from me. And I understand all the strife that this is going to cause. But, if we ever live by it. But I do have a way of going there as part of mathematically perfected economy if the society is interested in so doing. So anyway, real estate is another issue. Now, when it comes down to this oil that's being extracted from your mineral rights, so said, does that really belong to somebody for the cost of taking it, and to charge us more than the cost of taking it? I say no, absolutely not. No more than a builder of a house could charge us for the time of daydreaming when they were a boy that they wanted to be a contractor, construction contractor someday. Frankly, yes, there's costs of bad exploration. There's costs of returning the land to its former state. There's costs of cleanup. Those things, were part of the cost of delivering the product. But to make huge profits off of natural resources, which really are justly shared not only between all living people, but all future living people. I mean, I've got neighbors. I live on, a little town of 200 people, and it's all dirt roads except Main Street. And I've got neighbors that actually fire up their four-wheeler and drive to the middle of the road to talk with a neighbor across the street, and leave them running the whole time, And I mean, as a matter of course, I say people don't have a right to do that. I mean, you're consuming for nothing. You're consuming, fuel that future generations could need, or we don't need to be, polluting the, the atmosphere with this stuff, So a lot of all that, as I see it, is people are just so ignorant and negligent. They have such bad attitudes toward all these things that they've got a lot of growing up to do before they're going to get where they really need to be altogether. But this thing about mathematically perfected economy is, I finally realized that we're not going to do this if we insist on being a majority and accomplishing it. Then that's why the mandate is constructed the way it is as the law of sovereign individuals. That is, we're going to allow other people to go on charging each other interest, but we're divorcing ourselves entirely from their currency and their consequences, and we're holding them responsible for the ramifications of what they do. In other words, the costs that are heaped upon federal government, we're disavowing that we will pay for them. We've already paid for them many times over. If they want to continue doing so, so do it. But pay that off so that the federal government, which we need, which is far less than we have, but what we need doesn't fall as well with their destruction of it. We're holding the rest of society accountable for this. And frankly, I don't think we're actually a minority. I think we are the vast majority, but people have to wake up to the ramifications of all these things before they realize that there is, one and one only solution to the categoric faults of this huge lie that we call economy, which is the exact opposite of economy.
Right. I agree with you on that, and that's as I'm talking to you, you're answering my questions as we go, because these are the things that I've thought about, just in the little bit of reading that I've seen, that I was going to go to, how can you force someone to not, if someone wants to pay interest, they're going to do it, but like you've already answered that.
Sure.
We just have two societies. We have dumb people and smart people, and we don't have.
That's right.
We don't have to do what the dumb people want.
Yeah, and this is an issue that we have, on all fronts. I mean, when we wage war, if you do your bookwork on it, on what's going on, you see that it said that this country had weapons of mass destruction. So we send all these people over there who are supposed to be National Guard, but we use them for a purpose which was excluded to them when they signed into this responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
We're violating these people. Then we lie to them. We say we're over there because of weapons of mass destruction, and the only weapons of mass destruction these people actually have are the military dumps, which we've left unguarded, that they can drive pickup trucks into and truck load after load after load of military arsenal away, which are now all of these, improvised explosive devices. So we're sending our own guys into that, which was our own negligence. And so it's like the guys at the top of this are running, this thing without any, in the most negligent way at the very best, if not the most devious way on purpose. And what's at the bottom of this? What you find if you look at the chunk of history that we've created here is that long before Iraq got a government, it got a new central bank.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the most important thing for us to realize. And this isn't to say that we don't welcome our troops home. It's that we embrace them for saying, hey, wait a minute, if that's what it amounts to, I'm not doing this. I'm not shooting children. I'm not kicking in doors. I'm not getting blown up. I'm not having my friends get blown up. I'm out of here. And in my opinion, every soldier has a right to do that. If the purpose of the war doesn't amount to, in truth, to what was alleged to be the purpose of the war, then a soldier has a right to evaluate that and say, I'm not one of them. How old are you?
I'm 32.
Okay. When I was in high school, I was born in 1952, so I'm almost 60 now. And if you can imagine this, I'm going to take you back to the Vietnam War. I just saw something because it's, Veterans Day, and, they're, giving these guys their rightful due, these people who serve us. They said in this thing that I had on a while ago that when you returned from the Vietnam War, you weren't welcomed or appreciated. Well, in truth, that is a fact. Not completely unwelcome. There was a